Equality. The basic definition of equality is the state of being equal. But in modern times, equality is most recognized with social rights and equity due to the inequalities many of us have experienced or witnessed. To understand why this is, we need to look back through our history and examine a few things. Prior to human civilizations, human behavior would have been more animalistic and instinctual, so the concept of equality might not have been understood or practiced then, since nature is not regulated by ethics. The reality is, there's no such thing as true equality. Everyone is not created equal. In fact, it's the inequalities that govern nature, as the strong dominate the weak. Organisms who are bigger, stronger, faster, more intelligent, or even more attractive will have an unfair advantage over the rest of the members within the species. But we must also remember that nature requires balance. Therefore, power will never go unchecked. Be that as it may, we live in modern civilizations now, and this is why equality has more to do with equity. Life is very complicated for both human and non-human animals, and it's most likely the reason why many species have evolved to create social communities. This gave those species certain advantages, such as the ability to work together and help each other. And since cooperation is necessary, individuals within a group would need to feel some sense of fairness in order to establish an alliance. Take wolves, for example. We're not exactly sure how humans and wolves co-evolved, but we do know the sharing of food played a major role. Being that wolves live in packs, their social structure consists of a pecking order, whereas the dominant wolves feed first. Wolves at the very bottom of the hierarchy might not have always gotten to eat, and the hunger driven by this inequality has caused them to leave their packs in search for food. When these hungry wolves came across humans and were given food on a consistent basis, it gave them a feeling of appreciation, acceptance, and inclusion, allowing them to form new social bonds with our species. Fast forward to modern times, and the wolves in our homes today are treated just like family. Our families are like our first and closest tribes. And all social species require some form of love and care in order to survive. This brings us to tribalism. Humans are tribal by nature, and there has always been tribal hostilities and conflicts throughout our history, most notably between nations. Every nation also has close-knit tribes or groups who hold strong beliefs, which glorify themselves while detesting others. Primarily due to discriminations based on politics, religion, race, sex, or ethnicity. Major tribal conflicts are also commonly replicated in interactions between individuals, since most of us identify or associate ourselves to a specific group or a set of ideologies. Since religion and politics have the largest populations, most humans have fought each other over God and country than any other tribal disputes. Because of our social nature, we have a strong desire to constantly seek acceptance and belonging, which we may find in tribes based on religion, nationality, cities, teams, gangs, clubs, and other common interests. Studies have shown that having strong social bonds are actually healthy, both physically and mentally. But in contrast, being neglected and rejected by a group or individual can cause emotional distress, leaving us with feelings of depression, anxiety, unfairness, animosity, or anger. It's necessary for us to understand why we choose to accept some and not others. And why others choose to either accept us or not in return. There are various reasons why people decide to treat others a specific way, whether it be positive or negative. And it isn't always fair for many of us. Some of us are born healthy, into wealth, very attractive, and into safe environments, while others are born into the very opposite. None of us get to choose how we're born, or even how we're raised. But we do get to choose how we behave once we become aware of our actions and how it affects others. There is a moral principle known as the Golden Rule, which basically says we should treat others in the same manner as we would want to be treated ourselves. Deep down inside, most of us are good-hearted people and want to do the right thing. But we are also socially conditioned by our communities and cultures, which makes discrimination a learned behavior. We can start to learn prejudice and discrimination from adults at a very young age. And being taught to treat some animals as friends and family, but others as objects and things, is the very first form of discrimination we are indoctrinated with. Once we start to accept and normalize discriminations, it then becomes certain to mistreat, abuse, and even murder others we consider unequal or different. What can we do to correct this? Well, let's think about a few things first. Ever wonder if a blind person can discriminate? Remember, discrimination is learned behavior. So a blind person can be taught to discriminate just as they can learn anything else. But it's very uncommon, as discrimination requires the ability to recognize differences in others.
What I think it is and how it works and how I perceive it and everything. I have to be honest, I don't think about it. I don't. I mean, for example, I don't think of people being tall or short, right? I just think of them as humans. I think about what they have to say. I think about what they think, you know, how they are to me. I don't care if somebody's 6'10" or 4'9". You know what I mean? Just the same way, I don't care what color somebody's skin is. I can't imagine what that must be like. You know, to have different color skin. It's just not something I really think about too much. I just think about people. And I think about if we have fun together and if we like each other, you know? If somebody makes me laugh, it doesn't matter if they're, you know, tall or fat or skinny or black or green or whatever. I just like them and we have a good time together.
So are blind people able to help us see and understand things we can't? Could the way someone looks define their character and tell us what kind of person they are? Since the brain learns from recognizing patterns, which it detects through sensory inputs from sensory organs like our eyes, we automatically develop stereotypes when we see a specific group of people displaying the same beliefs, practices, and social behaviors. Stereotypes are not always right, but statistically they could be considered probable. Even though we don't want to admit it, because it stems from prejudice and discrimination, we all stereotype or have stereotypes. The reason for this has to do with our evolution for survival. When we come across something that is potentially dangerous, our brains react to optimize time and energy, such as a split-second decision. Police shootings are observable examples of this, as their reactions are in relation to stereotypes and self-preservation. Black Americans, who only make up around 13% of the US population, account for the highest percentage of those killed by police. Now, the argument can be made that this is because of their race, but it would be unfair to not address the reasons why or question other probabilities. Unfortunately, tribal biases are so ingrained into human cognition that no amount of evidence or factual data can convince most individuals to understand what they do not want to accept. Therefore, using animals to illustrate and identify social behavior might be more neutral and objective. Let's take pit bulls, for example. There is a very bad stigma about pit bulls being dangerous and aggressive. But most pit bulls are lovable, loyal, and harmless. So why do they have such a bad reputation? Statistically, pit bulls are responsible for well over half of all dog attacks. They have caused both injuries and fatalities. Now we have to ask why this is. Well, everything has to do with how they're raised and what type of experiences they've been through. Almost all pit bull dog attacks are by males that have not been neutered. And sadly, pit bulls are the most abused and most neglected dog breed. They spend the longest times in shelters and end up being the most euthanized as well. What's even more sad is that they are entirely blamed for what humans have created. Despite being very knowledgeable on pit bull breeds, the most devout pit bull lover would still hold prejudices. This comes back to the brain analyzing the potential dangers and the probabilities in order to protect the body from harm. For example, whenever an individual who is experienced in rescuing animals comes across a stray dog, the first thing they would do is recognize the physical aspects of the dog and then the behavior. The assumption that an aggressive large dog would be more dangerous than an aggressive small dog would be considered a stereotype. But we would not question the morality of the rescuer for taking advanced precautions, as it would be the most logical thing to do. Once trust is established between both the animal and the human, mutual affection can start to grow. It's really no different between humans learning to trust and bond with other humans. Some individuals may need more time to open up to others, depending on past trauma and negative experience they've had. But as long as there is a mutual desire to create positive relationships, any form of prejudice and discrimination can be overcome. And since the main causes of all conflicts emerge from differences and inequalities, we should all strive to curb our egos and identify our similarities instead of our differences. So we can treat each other with peace, love, respect, and fairness.